All right, so now I've just drawn the new shape. If I turn off the vector, and that automatically fills with that gradient, I can then shift the gradient to 15-degree angle. Very nice. And then this blue path, the fill I had underneath, what I'll do is I'll duplicate this gradient by copying it, edit, copy, edit, paste in place, right? And I've just doubled up two transparent gradients. And instead, I will take this one, and I will use my eyedropper and select this flat, then replace this one with that flat color. And then turn this one off. But I want to make sure that my flat color is not at only 70%. Not transform, what I'm looking for, transparency. There it is. Or at 45%. So basically you want your back flat color to be at 100% so you can really see how it looks. And I might lighten it somewhat. Yeah, there we go. See how that looks on top? Maybe I'll darken it again. And a little darker. Or I can fill this with a gradient as well, but not with a rainbow gradient, instead with what's called a fading gradient, where it's a color on one side but it will gradate to nothing on the other side, to no opacity, and the opacity will fade as it goes. And you can set the different opacities along the way. So lots of different coloring options within Illustrator itself. I'm trying to get a sense of the potential of these across the whole of it. All right, so let's say I liked that. Now notice it doesn't line up perfectly behind it. You see the little dips coming in and out. And that's all a real pain. And it can all be fixed, but it would have to be fixed with an accurate pencil tool, like along this edge, all to go behind the outline. So this is to show you how you can do it in Illustrator. And then I'll show you how we can do it within Photoshop. but it is good to get a sense of your options, painting and coloring within and behind your black line work in Illustrator. But what it's most helpful for is actually replacing your path, which is what I did with the main letter forms and the swoosh. Okay, next, I can make that path match, right? I can duplicate it. This is the new one I've drawn. Copy it. New layer. Not a new layer, sorry. Paste it in place. Then the one behind, I'm going to steal from here. Like so. And I can see if I like that modification or not. I can also steal from the gradient. So make another one, edit, copy, edit, paste in place. But this one, I'm going to first steal from this, the gradiated background. And take that and turn it off. And now everything should fit to the edges pretty well. My different transparencies. Okay, so how can I use this in a way that's really versatile? First, I want to save it. Angry Elementals, title, flag, color, vector. All right, I'm going to save it as an AI file. And then I'm going to separate it out into different EPSs. So first of all, I want to turn that background off and first just save this. In fact, what I might actually do is turn it off without the little background swoop. So just save this on its own. So I will save that as an EPS to the desktop. And I'll call that title only. Flag color vector as an EPS. Then I will turn off or turn on that background, turn off all the individual letter forms, right, and turn on that background color and save this as an EPS background title flag. Now I could put a pattern in there as well in Illustrator, but all of that kind of more detail work is left better to Photoshop. Okay, so now I have two different EPSs I can play with. I should not have to return to Illustrator at all now. Those EPSs I saved to my desktop. The first one I'm going to bring in and on top of my black and white one. Hold down Shift. Put it in place. Holding down Shift keeps it from warping, right? But look, here's an interesting little effect I can use. Because I have the black underneath, just note before I line it up, I can offset them so I get that little shadow. And that could be nice. So how would I actually do that? Well, I'm going to turn off the black EPS underneath, just so you can see it. duplicate that, turn off the smart layer, rasterize the one underneath, because I didn't separate these components, right? And then just delete from that rasterized copy all this stuff. I'll do it in chunks. It's basically giving me a drop shadow. Now, of course, I could just put in a drop shadow too using layer styles. But sometimes it's fun to not have the computer generate these effects, because there isn't a way that I know of using layer styles to put a white stroke around a drop shadow. So sometimes you can get those aspects from your EPS file. This is a tight space, so let me zoom in a little bit. Wait, what happened? Command Z is your friend when something unexpected happens. Now I want you to make mistakes. I want you to play and be experimental. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm playing, seeing what can happen. Right? So by offsetting them a little bit intentionally, not having them sit directly on top of each other, yeah, it gives me a nice drop shadow underneath that feels pretty comic booky, pretty believable. Trying out the different placements. Okay. Now this is still a smart object, my color one. And it just shows me I need to get rid of that swoosh here, after all. That's muddying it up. And build as much with smart objects as you can. It does muddy the swoosh quite a bit, so this is what I can do. Let's see. I can't separate the smart object, but what I can do is duplicate it. Always keep a smart object there and rasterize it so I can separate it. Because I'm at a good resolution. I'm at 18 by 24 by 350. So this is poster size now. And what this allows me to do, I'm going to use my polygon selection tool. I can separate the bottom, because I just basically need a little bit more space on the bottom of all these letters for the drop shadow to work. I can space it out. Things you don't always anticipate. But a title flag can shift a little bit, especially when it's got multiple components like mine does. And then what I'm going to do is hit Command X to take that out, and then Command V to paste it in, and then I will move it where I need it. Like so.